Hey guys, today we'll be taking a look at the Lefant F1 at 4000 pascals, 200 minutes of runtime, 600 milliliter dustbin. Is this the right vacuum for you? Well, stay tuned. I'll tell you all the features about the F1. Well, I want to give a huge shout out to Robot Vac Collector. He has a pretty cool channel all about vacuum cleaners. Now, let's see what he has to say about the F1.
Lefant F1 Robot Vacuum. I was doing a review on this one. I'm using this one in my parents' bedroom pretty much every day. As you can see, there's a little bit of dust, but it's okay. This is full. Let's try and empty it out. We have a nice cube.
Well, I could give Lefant credit. They did a nice job on the packaging. The box is nice and colorful, and everything was neatly laid out. You got the accessories like bounding strips, a power adapter. You also have a docking station, the robot, some additional side brushes, and you also have a wet mopping option. This is more of a basic robot vacuum, but you actually have two cleaning modes. You got auto, and you also have random. So the F1 is really aimed for someone who's looking for a basic, easy to use robot vacuum. And one thing to note is this is a suction only port where there's no actually spinning extractor bar. So keep that in mind. It's really designed for hardwood floors, or maybe you have like an area rug that's very smooth, then this should be fine. But if you have like a plush carpet, then I do recommend a robot vacuum with a spinning extractor bar, so it can help agitate the carpet a little bit and pick up that dust and debris. With most of these robot vacuums, you do have an auto recharge feature. This is nothing new, but one thing to know is if you accidentally bump into it, it'll try to realign itself. Okay, so the setup process is pretty straightforward. So when you get the robot out of the box, just kind of remove all the wrapper. Now there is a power jack off to the right there, and just plug it in. And towards the back, you see you can wrap the cable around to give it a nice clean setup. Now, one interesting thing is there is a green LED light letting you know you're getting power. Kind of wish it turned red to let you know that the robot is charging. And once it's done charging, it will turn back to green. Okay, so let's look at the robot here. It's a pretty small robot. It's actually smaller than most of the robots I review on this channel. But one interesting thing is that suction only port. You notice that there's no spinning extractor bar. So this robot's really designed for that smooth deploying. Now there's a bunch of features you can do with the robot without ever having to pull out the application. So for example, you can turn the robot on and off, you can do a play pause, but you could also set up a scheduling, you can change the vacuum levels, go into Wi-Fi pairing mode. I think there's a couple things I completely forgot. So I do recommend reading this instruction manual which they provide on the robot, and it also tells you how to clean the filter and empty out the dustbin. So the F1 does have a systematic cleaning pattern where it relies on gyros and accelerometers, and you do have live map tracking if you're in this cleaning mode. Now, the downside to this is the map gets deleted each time you start the robot, so you can't save the maps, so you don't get the area selects or the no-go zones. The robot did a pretty good job with furniture. One thing to note is there's no physical bumper, so if it's up against the furniture, it may kind of press it harder than it needs to be. But once the infrared sensors see the object, it will gently go around the object without actually bumping into it. So I have this upside down like A1 sauce challenge or bottle challenge, and it did good not hitting it or knocking it over. So there's actually 3 modes where you can do gentle, you can do medium or high sensitivity. So if you're really worried about delicate instruments or like guitar stands, then you can turn on high and the robot will completely avoid going near those objects. Okay, so here's a completed map of the area. As you can see, it doesn't have as much detail as a LiDAR-based system or some camera-based system, so just take this with a grain of salt. It's really as just a reference point. Alright, let's go and see how well the F1 does if I put an obstacle in front of it and then tell it to go back to its docking station. You can see that kind of bounces around and then eventually it makes its way back to the dock. Okay, let's go and wrap up this video. I'll give you my final thoughts on the F1. So what I like about it is the small size. It really allows it to get underneath most of the small furniture. Also, the dustbin is very large for the size, around 600 milliliters. You can see that there's a little plastic flap. Very nice touch so it doesn't spill out the contents when you have the dustbin. Now, you do have this little blue button where you push and it empties out the dustbin. So it makes emptying out the contents fairly easy. Also, it has a fairly large opening so you can take the suction only tool and vacuum out the rest of the contents. Alright, let's go and talk about the cons. A couple things I noticed is I kind of wish I had a voice prompt instead of beeps. Kind of gets confusing what the different beeps mean. Also, with the random pound, there's no edge mode. So, as it's going around, it just randomly bounces and it can't really get out of these like tighter areas. It does eventually make its way out of here, but it does take longer than like if I tested the E5 in the same situation. Okay, so if you're interested in F1, I'll put a link down below. I'll put my coupons down if you want to get a discount. So have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much for watching. Adios.